So I'm recording this segment while I'm editing this video because I thought the initial intro was not that important or interesting. So I will cut straight into main part of this video because at first I was quite disappointed with this lens, but then everything changed. But I'll explain that a bit later. Enjoy! Last year I reviewed a 27mm lens from TTArtisan. I really enjoyed using it, although it did have one flaw for me. But honestly, considering the price, it's something you can easily live with or even grow to appreciate. If you're interested, check out that video, it's linked in the description below. I was so impressed by that lens that I ended up buying their 56mm lens with my own money, and I think it's an even better value for the price. Let me know if you'd like to see a full review of that one too. But today I want to talk about another TTArtisan lens, the 35mm F1.8 that they sent me for review. And while I did receive this lens for free in exchange for making a video, I'll be honest with you, there are a few things you should be aware of. So if you're interested, stick around, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and let's dive into this TTArtisan 35mm lens that costs just $125. Yes, $125. That's like the cost of 3 overpriced lattes and 1 questionable eBay tripod. As I mentioned, I've grown to really enjoy what TTArtisan is doing. For such an affordable price, they offer quite a lot. Here I've got the second version of their 35mm f1.8 lens for APS-C cameras, and in my case it is with Fujifilm mount. The design isn't anything special, it looks almost exactly like my 56mm lens, just a bit shorter. But honestly, I have no complaints about that. If keeping the design simple helps lower the price so more people can afford photography, then I'm all for it. And hey, if you are after a more stylish looking lens, you can always grab one from Fujifilm, which also costs more. That said, I still think TTArtisan has a nice minimal design. The lens has a metal body, a metal mount, and it weighs less than 200 grams, so it's lightweight and easy to carry around all day. A bonus is that the lens cap also works as a base for firmware updates, but I will touch that a bit later. The only downside in the design, in my opinion, is the lens hood. It looks very plain and doesn't really do much to reduce lens flares, but at least it's included in the box, which is always nice. When it comes to the focal length, I'll be a bit more critical, mainly because I personally prefer tighter focal lengths. Even though 35mm on APS-C, which is about 50mm on full frame, is considered a standard view, it still feels a little too wide for me sometimes. That said, if I had to pick only one focal length to use for the rest of my life, it would probably still be 35mm. Why? Because tighter focal lengths aren't as versatile, and with 35mm you don't need to step back too far to get a wider shot. Now getting into how this TTArtisan lens performs, I originally intended to be quite harsh here. I took it outside during the winter and honestly I was surprised, not in a good way, by how this lens focuses. I didn't expect it to hunt for focus so much and frequently miss focus altogether, especially when shooting into direct sunlight. After having used the 27mm and 56mm lenses from TTArtisan, I couldn't believe that this 35mm lens would perform so much worse. At first I thought maybe it was due to the cold weather, but then I took this lens with me on a trip to the seaside, and in warmer conditions around 8 degrees Celsius, it did perform slightly better. Still, it would hunt for focus from time to time and some shots were still out of focus. I was honestly pretty disappointed. I had expected it to perform on par with the other TTArtisan lenses, and it made me sad, thinking I'd have to make a review saying how poorly this lens works and that I just couldn't recommend it. But then I remembered the letter I got from TTArtisan, and guess what? I hadn't fully read the last part of the letter where they suggested updating the firmware on the lens. Classic user error, right up there with blaming your computer for not working, when it's actually unplugged with dead battery. I felt so silly because of my lack of attention. I nearly ruined this review and gave you all the wrong impression. Luckily, I managed to update the firmware and that completely changed the game. The autofocus issue was fixed. Now the 35mm lens focuses properly, locks onto subjects quickly and only occasionally misses a shot. Its performance is now on the same level as the other TTArtisan lenses I've used. That said, the process of updating the firmware is a bit of a pain. you need a Windows computer, and for some reason TTArtisan recommends using Windows 10 instead of Windows 11. I've been using a Mac for years, so it was a real challenge just to find someone with a Windows machine so I could do the update. I had to call in a favor, like I was asking someone to help bury a body. Hey, do you still have that old Windows laptop? TTArtisan, please make it possible to update firmware via Apple computers. It would make things so much easier. Another thing I noticed was the vignetting. I was hoping this lens would be vignette free, but unfortunately there is still some present. It's not as heavy as the vignetting on the 27mm lens, but it's still something to keep in mind. Of course, you can remove it in post-processing, but that's an extra step, especially for people who use Fujifilm film recipes and prefer to skip editing altogether. If you do want to remove the vignetting, you'll still need to tweak your images before sharing them. Recently, I took the TTArtisan 35mm lens with me to shoot a street-style photo shoot, and I can say I really like the results. We shot both inside the retro cafe and outside. I used my Fujifilm X-S20 camera with the film simulation and added some grain, which looked just right for the style. The lens worked well and gave a natural look, hence the focal length. When the aperture was wide open, there was more vignetting, yes, but in return I got a beautiful separation between the model and the background. Some of the close-up portraits came out amazing, especially the one where the model is sitting on the stairs. It looks so retro and I really love that shot. Then we went outside and I kept shooting at f1.8 for a bit. After that, I changed the aperture to f2.2. At that point, the vignetting wasn't as strong, but still had a nice background blur. By the way, all the images you see here are straight out of the camera, no editing at all. I only used film simulation settings. If you're interested, I have a few videos on my YouTube channel where I share my favorite Fujifilm film recipes that I like to shoot with. About how the lens performs, I've included a series of shots where both I and the model were moving. That way you can see how often the lens misses focus, or me if I jiggle camera too much. Anyway, only a few shots came out blurry, but overall I think the results are pretty good. To sum it up, I still think this lens is a great value for the money and a solid option for anyone on a tighter budget. It works well for me too, because for just 125 bucks I get a lens that I can carry around the city, capture everyday moments with my family and not worry about breaking the bank. I mean, if I lose it, I'll be sad, but not sell a kidney sad. It's a good feeling knowing that my savings for a new home didn't take too much of a hit. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you'd be interested in a review of the TTArtisan 56mm lens as well. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, have a nice day and keep shooting!